All of us have those friends from our past that at the time meant so much to us, but then somehow, some way, just drifted apart.
I think it is important for people to try to connect with each other, especially if they haven't seen each other in many years and they had a special relationship before.
The passage of years is one of the main reasons that continue to keep us apart.
I think if you haven't seen somebody for 10, 15, 20 years, I think you should go make an effort to go get together with them, because it means a lot to everybody. It really does.
And although we may occasionally think about reconnecting, more often than not, we don't. And this show is about inspiring people to reach out, reconnect, and reunite, because
we just don't have that many special relationships in our lifetimes.
Especially relationships like the one shared by Scotty Ferguson, Bob Gifford, and Bud Bacon. These three men became fast friends when they flew and fought together during the Korean War.
There's very few things in life that would bond people together as such as the brotherhood of men fighting together.
The three of us were close. This time will be the first time the three of us have been together since 1953.
Well, they're the greatest guys in the world.
Well, I think it's just going to be all hugs and kisses and three old guys hooting and hollering.
This is the story of three hotshot fighter jocks who, after more than 50 years, are going to once again be reunited.
Although life may put us on separate paths, it's never too late to make up for time lost.
Relationships seem to have a natural ebb and flow. People come in and out of our lives all the time. And if we're fortunate enough, we have those few extraordinary people that touch our hearts forever.
It's nice to get together with people who you haven't seen in a long time, especially because they have unique experiences that a lot of other people don't have.
The question is, if our friends are so important to us, why do we lose touch?
I think it's because of the time that goes by, and then you think, oh, they don't remember me, or I forgot about, they forget about you and that sort of thing.
I think it is important for people to try to connect with each other, especially if they haven't seen each other in many years and they had a special relationship before.
Larry Ferguson grew up like most other kids in the 1960s, watching his father, Scotty Ferguson, get ready for work every day. Except his dad wore a different kind of suit, a flight suit.
Dad was, he's a fighter pilot.
Larry and his family knew how much the war and his flying meant to their father, Scotty.
Yeah, the fighter pilots were like the elite guys, especially back then. And to know that your dad, or our dad was one of those guys, in modern terminology, it was very cool.
I think he'd love to go out and get in a fighter jet right now and take off, if he could. He would if nobody was watching.
The free nations have learned the fateful lesson of the 1930s. That lesson is that aggression must be met firmly.
As America readied its troops for the Korean War, Bud Bacon and Bob Gifford were in college, while Scotty, who was already a Navy vet from World War II, began honing his flying skills.
Scotty went to sign up for the Air Force, passed all of his tests, went into the Air Force, into the cadet program in May of 1949.
Well, I'm a fighter pilot. When it broke out, I'd just become one. And the thing you do when you're a fighter pilot is you go to war if there's a war.
I was a cadet at West Point when the war began in the summer of 1950.
When I went away to college, I joined ROTC. And West Point guys They were cut above the ROTC guys. We were reserves and they were regulars, and we weren't allowed to forget that.
So I didn't think there was any chance in the world the war would still be going on when I graduated and went and finished flying school, which took a year.
And then in 1950, the Korean War began, and that changed the picture.
Bob Gifford and I met in Bartow, Florida, and we were both in the same flying school class, so we became fast friends very soon thereafter.
The two new pilots turned up in Korea about the same time and were assigned to the same F-84 fighter-bomber group.
I left the United States on Christmas Day of 1952, and I arrived on New Year's Eve of 1953, and went right into the 69th Fighter Bomber Squadron. Gifford and I arrived about the same time. Scotty came along a little later.
The first time I saw Bacon on the base there, I said, "I thought I got rid of you," or words to that effect. And he says, "Well, I'm not happy to see you either," or something like that.
Scotty, now a first lieutenant, had already racked up 1,000 hours in the cockpit, arrived at the airbase called K2.
Scotty Ferguson arrived after Bob and I did in the squadron, and he was already an experienced pilot.
Well, I was older, for one thing, several years older than that, and I'd already been in a war. But I must have had 500 hours in an F-84 when I lived there. I knew the 84 better than anybody on the base.
As a matter of fact, Scotty came to be known as the old man in the squadron, and they relied on his experience and leadership.
We looked up to him as almost a god because of the experience he'd had in jet aircraft.
For some reason, he took me under his wing or tutelage and taught me the things that I really ought to know.
All I remember is that Gifford and Bacon and I sort of just hit it off.
It was his dad's passion and his longing to fly again that prompted Larry to reunite Scotty with his old friends. Larry knew it would mean a lot to Scotty to see his buddies, but would Scott do it in front of the cameras?
For this program, I said, "You're going to have to do one heck of a sales job to convince him to do anything like that. I guarantee he won't do it."
When we return, the defining moment that sealed their friendship forever. And later, a little turbulence along the way as Larry tries to reunite these men.
Another incident in a round-the-clock assault. It won't end until there's a truce in Korea.
Larry's current mission is to convince Scotty to reunite with his two wingmen. But it was another mission 50 years ago that bound these pilots forever. Out of the 80-plus combat sorties they each flew, they call one particular Pathfinder operation their perfect mission.
Scotty and Gifford were designated Pathfinders.
It was hard to find a target in Korea. All of the hills looked alike.
And I remember specifically there was an earthen dam that was the target.
Finally locating the site, Bob circled high above it while Scotty went back to lead the other planes to their target.
He says, "Show us what you got. Mark that target, because we're going to be there in about 1 minute." Then Ferguson, he comes in right after me, and he says, "Oh, you got a good hit. That's a great hit." And so he puts his bombs right into that smoke from mine, and so did the other 8 guys, including Bacon got a direct hit for a change. Everybody hit a bullseye. It was unbelievable. It was probably the best mission I flew.
But it was the next day when they truly found out how perfect their mission was.
We devastate them, as we used to say.
We realized that the dam had given way during the night. The lake no longer existed, and it had washed out several miles of highways and bridges, and maybe even a military installation or two.
I think that helped shorten the time that we were shooting at each other.
The men had always trusted each other, but on this day high over Korea, their bonds forged in battle deepened their mutual respect, which they carry to this day.
As we used to say when we were flying, it's the only war we've got, so we better make the best of it.
History may consider it the forgotten war, but to those who served in Korea, it was their war, and to them remains unforgettable.
I'll never understand why the Korean War didn't get the attention. My goodness, we were in it for 3 years and we lost some 35,000 killed.
And either this place isn't worth fighting over. Why am I here, you know? And I look around the Korean Peninsula, and it wasn't a building over one story.
When we got up in the morning and went down and strapped ourselves in the cockpit of those airplanes and went north to drop bombs, as far as we were concerned, we were in a war and we were in it to win.
You'd have to be a total moron not to be able to see the difference if the North Koreans had been allowed to continue, and the whole peninsula probably looked like what North Korea looks like today, which is a disaster.
As the war wound down, many friendships came to an end as thousands of American troops returned home and went their separate ways. When we come back, the family struggled to get these 3 intrepid pilots back together 5 decades after the war ended. In their retirements, the 3 men settled in different parts of the country. Scotty landed in Southern California, Bob in Northern California, and Walter Bud Bacon, the history enthusiast, returned to his roots, his hometown of Knoxville, Tennessee.
I'm very proud of him. His career is remarkable as far as I'm concerned.
After 33 years, Bud retired from the U.S. Air Force as a brigadier general.
Even though he won't make a big issue of it, obtaining the rank of brigadier general was impressive. Raising a family intact is impressive.
He's much too gentle. And most people who know him just can't believe that, you know, that he is a general and that he was a fighter pilot, because in my opinion, he just doesn't fit that.
Since my grandfather was a fighter pilot in the Korean War, I think that that's something that you have to have a lot of guts to do. Only someone who is very strong-willed and very brave could do what he did.
Bud not only loves history, but he enjoys his Sunday morning Bible class with a group of other retired veterans at the First Presbyterian Church.
He's been one of the prize members of our James Park class here. Walter is a type of officer or general that we look upon as being an officer and a gentleman.
He appears to be handling retirement marvelously.
I think he's enjoying his retirement. It's just so busy, and we both are so involved in so many things, there just aren't enough hours in the day.
Flying didn't define him. So when he stopped flying, that was because that was the transition in his life, that was part of his life that was over. There are others who cannot make that transition, I think. I've known lots of fighter pilots. I'd say he probably transitioned pretty well.
Point me to the skies.
Bob Gifford and his family settled down in a quiet little town along the Monterey Bay.
I live here in Carmel, and I've lived here since 1973.
Retired as a pilot from a major airline, Bob, always ready with a witty line, spends much of his time on the golf course or helping his artist wife, Mary Alice.
I have a little art business, and it's something that I did after retiring. He helps me when I have to take my paintings for a show. Hauling paintings around is a big job. No, don't put those on top.
As a volunteer for his wife, Bob takes it all in stride and handles most things with a good sense of humor. His other volunteer job is delivering food for Meals on Wheels.
He has received so much joy from those folks, and they become friends. So he's a huge asset to our organization.
Scotty Ferguson and his wife, Barbara, retired in Redlands, California. After 58 years of marriage, the day they met seems like only yesterday.
My father met my mother when she was singing in a nightclub in Portland, Oregon. That's kind of a neat thing about my parents. He was a fighter pilot, she was a nightclub singer, so you can imagine. They were a fun group of fun pair of people to grow up with.
I thought she was a pretty good-looking girl, so I decided I wanted to meet her, so I did.
I thought he was so cute. The first time I saw him, I just went, gaga goo goo over him.
So, what song was she singing when they met?
Treat me sweet and gentle when you hold me tight. Just squeeze me, but please don't tease me.
Scotty retired from the Air Force as a full bird colonel.
Yeah, our grandpa was a fighter pilot. Yeah. In 3 wars. Very proud of him.
After years of being in the cockpit, Scotty eventually found himself grounded as a pilot. Was it hard for him to stop flying?
At first it was. I think it really was.
I think retirement was really hard on him at first because, number one, he wasn't flying anymore, and I think that killed him.
The retirement didn't agree with me to start with. I started doing some charter flying and went into business for ourselves for a short while.
He bought a little fish and chips place and tried to make a go of that. He was called the Blue Dolphin, and he had another nickname for it. He'll have to tell you that, but when it went under, he called it something else, like the Blue Turkey or something.
Today, Scotty's focus is his family and his home life. Larry Ferguson was a bit hesitant to interrupt the quiet retirements of these men, but he feels very strongly about making sure these old pals meet up, and believes that doing it for a television show would not only be fun, but a great memory for their grandkids, and hopefully would inspire others to reconnect with their lost friends.
Yeah, I happened to be out in California recently attending my brother's surprise 50th birthday party, and I thought I'd use that opportunity with other family members around to tell him about it. He said, well, I'd like to think about that a little bit, and he said, well, if Bob decides to do it, I'll do it.
Determined to reunite these men, Larry presses on.
Bob, when I got him on the phone, his instant reaction after I gave him the laydown of the whole deal, he said, you got me hyperventilating over here. So I figured I had him at that point.
Once Larry got his dad and Bob to agree to reunite for the show, the men said they wouldn't do it unless Bud Bacon joined them. Larry was about to find out that the general needed a bit of prodding as well.
So what's this all about, this thing with this TV network? And give me some more details. And as I'd say one thing, he'd come back with a retort. It was that kind of a give and take conversation. But there was a lot of laughter along the way, and at the end he said, yeah, sure, I can do that.
So finally, everyone agrees, and the reunion is on.
This time will be the first time the 3 of us have been together since 1953.
Well, I think I'm looking forward to it as much or more than the other 2 guys.
How we look will probably be a topic of discussion. I'm the only one who hasn't aged. I'm sure that both of them will hardly recognize them.
I'm sure we'll be joking and laughing and joking. They're serious people, but they're not serious when we're together.
Coming up next, the long overdue reunion you don't want to miss. After weeks of planning, the moment of seeing each other after 50 years has arrived.
Well, it's very exciting, but it's, I don't know what you'd compare it to, but it's gets you in the gut. And thinking about meeting these 2 guys again, these 2 great guys I flew with.
I think my pulse rate's at least up to 60. More like 90.
It's kind of thrilling, sure is. No question about it.
We're looking at a lot of history here. History of flying.
Oh, geez, I think I can see Bacon. There he is. I see Ferguson. Look at that. He's over there doing a pre-flight.
And there's the F-84G.
I'm late.
Wait for you.
Couldn't see. It's kind of a gun. You haven't changed the damn.
Hello, Gil.
Old Jay Walter.
Yeah, Jesus. You haven't.
And Hot Scott himself. What are you doing, a pre-flight? You're going to fly
Yeah,
yeah.
you say that. Listen, I was really,
No tanks.
I knew I'd recognize him, but I was saying, gosh, you know, I'd be terrible if I didn't recognize Scotty.
He doesn't look any different. He was all wrinkled when we knew him the first time.
Had the old pouch and everything.
This is fun. This is fun. And your son had everything to do with it. Where is Larry?
He's out here somewhere.
I haven't met him.
Is he the big guy?
Yeah, he's the big guy. You hadn't met him either.
He's better looking than his daddy.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, Larry.
How are you, sir?
No, but Bob Gifford.
Larry.
Nice to meet you, sir. How are you?
Good.
I'm glad you could make it. It was a fantastic reunion.
Taxiing out or taxiing in? I'll let you know as soon as I figure it out myself.
You got it at Montgomery.
I said, I think we better taxi back.
Oh, it was great. It was great just seeing them. I could see them when they were walking towards each other. The smiles come out, pointing fingers at each other, and they couldn't wait for the moment when they got close enough to hug. So that was a very special moment, and I'm just glad I had something to do with it because it'll be a memory for everybody.
And of course, this old beauty, the F-84, we all flew in combat in Korea. So yeah, just memories flowing all over the place like a volcano.
I didn't think I was going to be very emotional. I don't know whether it was the sight of this F-84 or the prospects of what was happening. Oh, that was fun. Where do we go from here?
We found neither one of us had ever flown it. We figured out how to start it. We flew it anyway. The C-45. Yeah.
That's the same thing that happened to
Neither
us.
one of us. Oh, geez. After all these years, it's just, it's unbelievably great just to see him. Just to hear Bacon laugh again. He's always laughing. Gifford's funny. Always has been. And they were such good pilots. God, they were good. Probably still would be. My God, it's just like yesterday. We were flying together and laughing together, drinking together, doing all that good stuff. Especially the flying. It was an experience that you just can't possibly ever forget. So it's just great seeing them again.
I think it's because of the time that goes by, and then you think, oh, they don't remember me, or I forgot about, they forget about you and that sort of thing.
And
I think
say,
it's
they
that
won't
big
recognize
space
me,
of time that you think, oh, it's too late.
I think if you haven't seen somebody for 10, 15, 20 years, I think you should go make an effort to go get together with them, because it means a lot to everybody. It really does.
About all the memories, rekindling the memories that you have in
and there's
common.
just something there inside of you that you just don't forget your good friends. You just don't.
This is
Time may have lessened their swagger a bit, but the bond and admiration that connects these three warriors will never fade. Over 50 years have passed since their days in Korea. Years of work, marriage, and children. That thing called life. But for Scotty, Bob, and Bud, those 5 decades seem to vanish, blown away in the wind on a dusty runway, as these 3 men come together to reminisce old times and renew their friendship. Once again, reunited.
Good Lord. That's the best ball I've hit in 6 years.
It's a beautiful thing.
That's a good guy. Look at that. Yeah, I can't believe that.
Any questions?
We still got it. That was a good round.
Thank you, thank you, thank
Good
you.
round.
Good round. Good playing, Larry.
Thank you. You too, Bob.